You're listening to Up1Notch, a podcast where I explore the tech business world. My name is Mohammad Aoun, and I'm a growth accelerator for tech companies looking to scale their businesses. I'm sitting down with software industry leaders, startup founders, and tech experts. Tune in to hear about the latest and greatest from the tech world. Hi, Adam. How are you doing today?
I'm well, Mohammed. It's good to see you.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you on an episode of Up1Notch podcast. So Adam, why don't you go ahead and a little bit introduction about yourself, about QuestXR. I know that you've been working a lot in the AR, VR space, you know, about NFTs, the Web 3.0, metaverse, all of those great things that are happening. So I think if you can start off with a little bit of general introduction about yourself, just for people to understand your background, and then we can kind of talk a little bit about those great buzzwords that we keep on hearing, but nobody really understands still for some reason.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. These are always fun to do. So I've been in technology forever. I mean, I have an undergraduate degree in computer science, so you can see I'm a nerd from way back. Always try to be on some newer, cutting edge technologies. And so I've had the opportunity to sort of really start from scratch at the ground floor for a variety of different things, including DVD and Blu-ray, moving on into more interesting areas, I think in the more modern space in blockchain and Web3, metaverse. So I've been involved in technology areas like that for my whole life. And I've always found it really fun to get into the ground floor, kick the tires, go through all the early stages of the technology, and then find really, really solid applications for them in the real world, right? And so QuestXR is a bit of a passion project, came spinning out of some of the things we noticed during the pandemic, actually. But the whole idea of it is creating a game that integrates a lot of these technologies, AR, augmented reality, and we could talk more about that, but blockchain, and build it into a game that could be fun to play, interesting to learn some things. We want to put this in narrative form. And it's kind of like going to an escape room, but instead of doing it in a room, you do it somewhere else, and the content is delivered to you via your mobile app. So whether it's an AR or a piece of video or even an audio that give you clues and riddles and puzzles to sort of solve in order to complete the game. And the idea of it is, how do you build that out utilizing some of our newer technologies and then reward people using new technologies like, as you sort of mentioned, NFTs or tokens or real world rewards, like, something like a discount at a store. So all of this is where QuestXR is going, and we're excited to sort of release our POC sometime in the next couple of weeks. So getting there, it's been a lot of work, but we're getting there.
Absolutely, and looking forward to seeing that. So quick questions. Started off, like any usual technology. I mean, when the crypto and all of this huge wave around Bitcoin and crypto and all of these things came about, I think it was 2018 or 2019 when people really started working, operating, and all of a sudden the value of the Bitcoin went up, and people started to kind of really ask these questions: what exactly is a blockchain and things like that. So, very quickly, I saw the value. Obviously, it has like decentralization and all of those elements to it, and obviously, it's associated value in the banking sector specifically, when you allow like an alternative method to make payments, and which is at the same time more secure and decentralized at the same time. But what does like blockchain and NFTs and all of these things really mean for the gaming industry in specific? What elements can it really offer as a differentiating factor there?
Sure. So so a blockchain, right, to get down to real basics, is like a spreadsheet, right? It's a ledger, and literally DLT, right? Decentralized ledger technology. And the idea of it is just recording transactions. That's what it does. And so it does it immutably. So it cannot be changed. And this is very accounting oriented, right? So in the accounting world, if you make an entry into a ledger that's incorrect, let's say it's $1,000 and you meant to put $100, you don't erase the old 1,000 and change it to 100. You put in a new one that's negative 900. So they add up to $100, right? The two transactions. That's how blockchain works. Blockchain is a series of transactions that are entries into a ledger that then can be rolled up to determine final value, or, for example, in the case of cryptocurrency, the transactions that changed one token went from here to here, and then that same token went to somewhere else, and then went somewhere else. And all of that history is in the ledger, because you don't go back and change it. You don't just change the owner of the token. You actually put a new transaction that says it was transacted from one place to another. So now so everybody's familiar with, like you said, Bitcoin, it's cryptocurrency. NFTs are non-fungible tokens. So Bitcoin being a fungible token, what that means is that you can create an exchange rate with something else. It could be USD, or it could be another token. And you can always make that work. Now, it changes on a day-to-day basis, just like real currencies. If you were to change euros into US dollars, then that changes on a daily basis. If you've ever traveled, you know that, right? And then the same thing happens with something like a fungible token, which is what Bitcoin is. Non-fungible tokens, you can't do that. You can't just say today this is worth X Bitcoin. It's only an agreed upon exchange, right? It basically says, well, I'll buy it from you for X Bitcoin, but not that it's absolutely worth that. So that's the difference between a fungible token and a non-fungible token. And non-fungible tokens, NFTs, are no, they don't have to be unique, but they have to be either very limited or unique. So you don't have an infinite supply or a very, very large supply of NFTs. So how do they work in the gaming industry? So the idea, one of the key things in the gaming industry is what are called digital assets, right? Things that you as a player have earned throughout a gaming experience. It could be coins, it could be currency within the game, or it could be objects, like if you're playing a fantasy game, a magic sword, or if you're playing a combat game, a weapon. And so right now they're just completely restricted to within that game, right? You earn a game earn an item in one of the games. Well, you can't transfer it to another game, and you can't really transfer it to another person. Some cases there's some marketplaces, but for the most part, that's it, right? It's only sitting in a centralized database somewhere that says it's in your account. Well, some people think, and I'm among them, that you can use NFTs to represent those digital assets, and then it takes it completely to another level. First of all, you can buy, sell, and trade them outside of the app, right? So even if you were just outside of the game itself, you could create a third-party marketplace where you can trade these assets with people, amongst each other, bring them back into the game, and now your character has the weapon that you bought from some other person. Taking it to the next level is, could you then take that same asset and bring it to another game, a completely different game? And I think that there's some real opportunities there. There's a lot of challenges around that because of how games are built. Games are built, with a delicate balance between how many objects there are, how much currency is in it, and they're all different. So in one game might be very generous with rewards, and then another game might be very stingy with rewards. And if you go play the other game and I'll bring all your rewards from one, and when I say rewards, I mean currency or items or whatever they may be, into the other game, you could overwhelm that game. So you've got to be very careful about that. But I think that there are ways to create kind of similar exchange rates, right? That say, I'll allow X amount of gold into my game that came from outside my game, but it's going to be a tenth, right? Worth a tenth of what, or a hundredth of what, you would get it in the other game. So I think that's where sort of all these things begin to come together, using blockchain as a way of recording those transactions, as a way of NFTs, as a way of representing assets, and then you can create these third-party marketplaces, and then ultimately make these items interoperable amongst games. That's a roadmap, but it's something I think that's coming, and something we're working on at Quest.
Right. So I think that basically the underlying understanding here is that in the past, you could own physical objects, like you could own a property, you can own a house, you can own something like that actually exists, right, in a physical world. But with the digital, world, now we're talking about essentially for the first time, I guess, at least what I understand is that this is the first time that people will be able to own digital assets. Like, for example, I'm seeing NFTs being sold for millions of dollars now. That's never happened in the past. Never thought that would be a case as well, that people are interested in buying such things, right? For example, somebody's tweet from, for example, YouTube's first video or first tweet from Elon Musk. People want to own it, like they have like the affiliation with that. So I think that's definitely an area which was untapped, and that's exactly what the value it's delivering, right, with NFTs and blockchain.
Yeah, I believe so. I think that is a very, very common way of looking at blockchain and Web3 is this ownership, right? They talk about how the first iteration of the web was sort of a read only, right? You could read what other people wrote. The second iteration was read write, and now the third iteration includes ownership. And I think is a good example in the entertainment industry that shows how this could be better, which is that there was a product called Ultraviolet. You may be familiar with it. And the idea of it was when you bought a DVD or a Blu-ray, you would get a digital copy of the movie for $1, or there was a coupon on it, I should say. There was a coupon inside that allowed you to get a digital. You can just redeem it for a digital copy. And you were supposed to be able to own that digital copy, bring it with you anywhere, have it forever. And people even would buy the DVD and then sell the digital copy coupon on eBay. Well, Ultraviolet shut down. It was a centralized service. It went away a few years ago, and that ownership vanished. Some people were able to transfer some of their ownership to like one service. I think it was Fandango, but for the most part, people just that promise of permanence went away. And I feel like we actually pitched to, when I was in a different company, we pitched to them to take over that, transfer all of those ownership, because they still have the records of them, of course, in their centralized database, turn them into tokens, which could then be, redeemed or recalled. I guess, once you set up a wallet, you could actually, get your ownership back. They didn't go for it, but it was an interesting opportunity to sort of take that promise of ownership and make it come true. And now I think as blockchain and NFTs and even other kinds of uses of cryptocurrencies coming along, that kind of thing can happen. And which is, like you said, couldn't really happen in the past. You were at the mercy of whoever held that digital asset for you.
Absolutely. So talking about you really explained it well, like Web 1.0 and 2.0 and Web 3.0. Talking a little bit about the Web 3.0. Let's dive a little bit about into the metaverse world. What is exactly happening there? I mean, we know blockchain, we know NFTs a little bit, and obviously crypto and all of those things are rising. There's AI, machine learning, AR, VR technologies are there. But what specifically is the metaverse, and what exactly would be the value in terms of, let's say, the customer service? How will it make the better, for example, experience for the people, let's say, buying something?
So the metaverse, the way I think about it is it's a reality that we don't live in, right? We live in our regular reality. The metaverse is an alternate reality where you can, and I think we'll kind of beat up on this, but I actually think from a visualization perspective, it's pretty good. That movie Ready Player One really did a nice job of visualizing what the metaverse was like, where you can inhabit an avatar. You can be whoever you want to be in that world, and then you can interact with other people in that. And again, it's a at least partially virtual world, right? Because augmented reality is also part of the metaverse. So, anything that's not 100% part of our normal reality, I think is part of the metaverse. So, for example, Pokemon Go, right? That's the probably most easily understood augmented reality game, where you pull up your phone, you look through the camera, and you see things that are not there in the real world. Well, that's part of the metaverse. And, so your question is, how does it make things better or different? It's an interesting question. I think that it's debatable right now, right? There's a lot of brand activity in the metaverse, especially in virtual reality, setting up shops in Decentraland and Sandbox, selling virtual sneakers and things along those lines. And I think that's, it's like anything else, like the $1 million NFTs. I think these are things that are going to settle to a degree, right? People are very excited about it right now. It's a new shiny technology. I think that's great. I have no problems with that. Anybody who made money off of that, or hopefully, didn't lose too much money off of it. It's an exciting, but it's a volatile place to be right now.
Right.
Ultimately, it's always going to be that human interaction, right? I think that in the end, regardless of what the technology is, what makes it exciting, what makes it sticky, what makes it fun is human interaction. Facebook, a great example, right? Facebook is a kind of a little weird technology where you post things, but it was all about getting responses from your friends, and then eventually responses from strangers on Twitter or something like that. I think that it's all about the human interaction. And there's a great deal of argument whether some of it's good or bad. But in the end, if there's no human connection between, and I mean that amongst people, not just between you and a computer, it's not going to be successful. And so where does that go with the metaverse? is a great question. You know, we believe at Quest that AR is a very exciting technology. It has business applications, you know, things like training, surgery, where there's guidance, real-time overlays on a human body or on a car to help you repair it, to help you, you know, diagnose problems, to, you know, something simple like a Yelp thing, right? Where you're walking along and you've got your AR glasses on and you look at a restaurant and it tells you what the Yelp rating is, right? I mean, you know, these are really cool technologies that that are evolving fast and can become very much part of our lives without taking us out of the real world, right? These are overlays on the real world when it comes to augmented reality. Virtual
Right.
reality is very different. And you immerse yourself in a very different place with people you may or may not know, right? I mean, chat rooms, the old metaverse were chat rooms back in the day where you would just type and say hello to someone and talk back and forth, but you didn't know who they were. Very similarly in the metaverse. But again, it's that human interaction that's going to make the difference, that connection, and whether our technology is used in a certain way or not.
Absolutely. So interestingly, I mean, I mean, obviously, especially after COVID, things have always been about e-commerce and everything. So obviously, people are getting more and more comfortable buying products, things online. Specifically, when it comes to buying clothes and shoes and all of that, I just never had that kind of what you call it, the ease of mind that okay, the picture that I'm seeing right now of a shirt doesn't really feel the way I think it feels. So one of the interesting things that I read the other day was that with the metaverse and all of these immersive technologies, what's going to happen is that you'll also be able to feel the texture of things online or like through those immersive technologies instead. Like for example, right now, if you order a shirt online from Amazon or any other website for that matter, you can't really see, you can't really touch it, right? So that's the problem that's really lacking there. And I think from the point of view of making the customer experience better, I think absolutely that there's a huge gap that can only be filled with metaverse and all of these technologies.
I think we're a ways away from fine-tuning touch to that point. What I do think though is that, like, and they're already doing this now in kind of a an interim step way, right? How about fit, right? I mean, I think one of the challenges, right, when you buy a shirt, when I buy a shirt, you know, I have to go try it on because
Right.
the same shirt that should be all the same specs completely fits me differently, right? Where the button lays or how wide the bottom of the shirt is or whatever it might be can be slightly different and really make it different. I think that if you create an avatar of yourself that really is your dimensions, and then you can use that in the metaverse to put a shirt on and see how it's going to fit on you, where the things are going to drape and lie, and how that works. You know, any kind of clothing, of course, a hat, pants, doesn't matter. I see that as some interesting opportunity. And you can see, like, I think it's Amazon does it now. You can sort of place it on yourself. And there's some other websites that do that. Some places that allow you to place objects in a room, right? You can use the metaverse to buy furniture and do a virtual rendition of your room and then place things and make sure they're going to fit right or look right, or, all those kind of things that you do with actual physical items. I think that's where you're right in the commerce area, that more immersion into the buying process and being able to sort of do something virtually that you literally cannot do today. I see that as some value in the metaverse. I think also, I mean, accessorizing your avatar is going to be kind of fun too, right? Because if you build an avatar that's not you, but you want to get the latest Nike kicks that are out, that are limited edition, that adds some fun to the whole process, right?
Right.
But why do you buy them? You don't buy them because again, I'm going to go back to the human thing, right? You don't buy them because you want cool virtual sneakers. You buy them because you want to show your friends that you got cool virtual sneakers. So I see that as again, it's always going to be about how you touch the humans to make it work. It's not all about tech.
Absolutely. I think at the end of the day, obviously, I think Steve Jobs said that, or somebody, I think it was Steve Jobs, who said, unless the customer likes it, unless the customer wants to use it, there's no point of building a product. You don't want to build a product that's the most complicated or maybe the most elegant product, but nobody wants it. What's the point of having such a product? So at the end of the day, obviously, the market, any product that stands the test of time essentially is the product that the market adapts or adopts well. And customers obviously are at the center of it. So I think that's great. So I mean, very looking forward to all of these things and see how they unpan and all of it. what part does regulations play into all of this? Like, for example, let's say cryptocurrencies and all of these things, as new technologies emerge, they also have their downsides that as in they can always be misused. For example, deep fakes now, for example. I mean, I definitely see a lot of value in those technologies, but there's no denying that there could be potential unless they are really regulated well. There could be potential like downsides there as well. So any thoughts on that?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think especially in the area of cryptocurrency, right? There's a lot of debate. I mean, the original vision of a Bitcoin was that it wasn't going to be regulated, that it was a group consensus, literally, right? There's the consensus algorithm that has a certain value and that people trade amongst themselves, and that it's free of governmental interference. The challenge, of course, is that that does leave it open for fraud and abuse. And it does happen. It happens all the time. You hear about these stories, and it's not just about the hacks. It's about things like, where there's an NFT drop for a popular game and it becomes popular and someone starts putting out things that says, oh, you can buy one from me for, $600, dollars worth of ETH, for example, but it's a fake. Right, it doesn't exist, and people. And once you send the money, it's gone. Right, and it'll make it look exactly like the website. It'll make it look exactly like you're buying something that's legit, but you're not.
Right.
You have to be super careful. So fraud is a problem. Now, where the regulations are going to come in, some of it's going to be, governments are beginning to regulate cryptocurrencies and treat them like regular currencies, and say you have to pay taxes on them, for example. Right, you have to report your cryptocurrency earnings. Your trading has to be reported, just like trading stock. So I see that as it's a double-edged sword. It would be nice if there was sort of a free society that we could do these kind of things safely, but we can't, and that's kind of what government is for. And so government is going to step in and do some of it and take away some of those, for lack of a better word. And I don't really want to use this word, but freedoms, right? I mean, it's much more important that there's a degree of. There's always that balance between security and freedom, right? And you've got to find a balance that's acceptable. Hopefully heavy on the freedom, but with the security that you're not going to be easily scammed. When it comes to something like deepfakes, that's tougher, right? I mean, I think that what's ended up happening is, technologies are being developed and can be developed to detect them, because in spite of how great they look to the eye, to a computer they look completely different than a living piece of video. So when someone mocks Barack Obama saying something that's not legit, which Jordan Peele did a great version of that. I don't know if you ever saw that, but it's absolutely beautiful. But a computer could detect it in an instant. So hopefully technologies will be developed to flag deep fakes and misinformation and disinformation as much as possible. It's not easy. Every time you find one way, the bad actors will find another way. It's an endless battle. But recently, there was a great story about how one of the foreign countries tried to meddle in the current U.S. elections that are about to go on in a couple of months, and we're in that cycle. And Facebook, Facebook shut down a bunch of accounts of two different big troll farms that were trying to stoke division in the United States, not just on one side, but on both sides. They were just trying to hype things up. And they were able to detect them because they're making better technologies to do that. So it's an never-ending battle, I think, to defeat bad actors. And you always have to be very personally responsible, right? Do your research, make sure you're careful about how you spend your money. It's still a password, right? Your wallet has a password. Keep that password tight. That's where most of the hacks happen, by the way. When you hear crypto hacks, 99% of them happen at the point of entry, not somewhere on the chain. So it's kind of an amazing situation that you have to sort of just be as careful with blockchain and with any cryptocurrency and any other thing that you do as you do with your car keys.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Adam, for speaking about all of these commonly used terminologies and obviously the whole background about these. And thank you so much for taking the time out for this podcast.
My pleasure, Mohammad. It was great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much.